about 2024?
We will see if this is a legal and valid election. What we're seeing so far is that Democrats are so desperate, they're trying to remove President Trump from the ballot. That is a suppression of the American people, and the Supreme Court is taking that case up in February. That should be a 9-0 to allow President Trump to appear on the ballot, because that's the American people's decision to make this November.
And the matter is, of course, halted pending that appeal, as you say. But just to be very clear, I don't hear you committed to certifying the election results. Will you only commit to certify the results if former President Trump wins? Does that mean if former President Trump wins?
No, it means if they are constitutional.
Several days later.
Well, Elise Stefanik should be ashamed of herself. That no decent, rational, credible individual, particularly folks who were here on January 6th when the violent insurrection took place, or are closely connected to the institution of Congress, should claim that the violent insurrectionists who attacked and brutally beat police officers are hostages. Extreme MAGA Republicans have become captive of Donald Trump's radical ideology and are parroting his words, his thoughts, and his ideas.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the salty Democrats who are moving to censure Elise Stefanik, the House Republican Conference chairwoman, over her comments about the January 6 prisoners being hostages and her opinion on the election.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to introduce a resolution to censure Congresswoman Elise Stefanik for providing aid, comfort, and support to the rioters and insurrectionists who violently attacked this Capitol on January 6, 2021, in an effort to undermine our democracy and illegally stop the peaceful transfer of power. Since that attempted coup, Ms. Stefanik has repeatedly and persistently expressed support for the duly convicted insurrectionists. Last week, echoing the inflammatory language of criminal defendant Donald Trump, Ms. Stefanik disgracefully referred to the January 6 insurrectionists in prison as, quote, hostages, unquote. Ms. Stefanik's support of convicted criminals charged with offenses against the United States government, including attempted violence against members of this body, is simply unacceptable from a member of Congress. Nor is it acceptable for a member of Congress who purports to oppose anti-Semitism to equate convicted insurrectionists with the more than 130 Israeli hostages who remain subject to horrific conditions in Gaza. She therefore must be censured. I yield back.
Again, so they are literally censuring her. They're trying to punish her for her free speech. And this is a part of something that we've been seeing in Congress, in which we have people being punished for free speech because we've opened the door, because everybody is a snowflake nowadays, right? And this is what you get. So now you have Democrats who are moving to try to do this against Elise Stefanik because, again, she said things about January 6th that they disagree with, right? That's literally what's happening, okay? Dan Goldman, the lying Democrat, has introduced a bill to censure her. And I guess if Republicans were as woke as Democrats, they could call that sexism, right? Because apparently it's sexist to criticize women, right? But yeah, so I want to actually play a clip of the interview that has Democrats so upset, right? In which this interview is with Kristen Welker. Now, Kristen Welker caught a whole lot of backlash for this interview with Elise Stefanik because she basically let Elise Stefanik destroy her when it comes to this conversation about January 6th and the election. So a lot of liberals were upset with Kristen Welker for not pushing back against Elise Stefanik hard enough. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Year anniversary, and I want to pause for a minute and play some of the comments that you made on the evening of that day. Let's take a look.
This has been a truly tragic day for America. Americans will always have the freedom of speech and the constitutional right to protest, but violence in any form is absolutely unacceptable. It is anti-American and must be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
In terms of what we're hearing today, former President Trump has referred to January 6th as a, quote, beautiful day. Just this weekend, he referred to some of those who are serving time for having stormed the Capitol as, quote, hostages. Do you still feel as though that day was tragic and that those who were responsible should be held responsible to the fullest extent of the law?
Well, first of all, Kristen, as typical for NBC and the biased media, you played one excerpt of my speech. I stand by my comments that I made on the House floor. I stood up for election integrity, and I challenged and objected to the certification of the state of Pennsylvania because of the unconstitutional overreach. So I absolutely stand by my floor speech. I am proud to support President Trump, and I want to correct another statement you made that there is no coordination with Joe Biden and the Department of Justice in prosecutions against President Trump. We just saw Hunter Biden defy a congressional subpoena, and the White House admitting it was in coordination with Joe Biden the morning of. That is coordination, and I believe that Joe Biden will be found to be the most corrupt president in our nation's history, and that's why all of the investigative work that we're doing is so important, because the American people, they deserve transparency and accountability.
Yeah, so as you can see here, right, quickly, liberals were upset about this interview because Elise Stefanik, again, basically did what Republicans actually should do, right? They should actually just, not play defense and play offense when they do these interviews, because she could have easily come out here and tried to talk about her comments on January 6th and the things that she said, right? But no, she actually just kind of focused on the fact that, hey, I stood up for election integrity that day. And also, by the way, Biden is weaponizing the Justice Department to go after their political enemies, right? Which, again, this is probably part of the reason why Trump allegedly is considering, or seriously considering, Elise Stefanik to be vice president, because most likely he's probably going to pick a woman. For as much as I want to see Vivek Ramaswamy be vice president, I understand you got to win elections, right? And women are probably going to be the single most important demographic for Republicans going into 2024. And most likely because of that, he's probably going to pick a woman. Apparently, she's at the top of the list, okay, in regards to women that are under consideration. And you can see why, right? She's actually pretty good in these interviews. And I'll say something else, too, about the whole January 6th stuff, right? Because people act like, when January 6th happened, right, I think most people, when it initially happened, people, had opinions about it. But, I don't judge people about their initial opinions when things happen, just like I don't judge people about their initial opinions when the pandemic first happened. When the pandemic first happened, nobody knew what the hell was going on, right? Nobody knew. So that's why I don't get in this back and forth that a lot of people get into, especially when you talk about Trump versus DeSantis in their response to the pandemic, the lockdowns or whatever, because first and foremost, nobody knew what the hell was going on, right? Trump and DeSantis both agreed that the lockdown was necessary at first when it first happened. But when we got more data, okay, when we got more reference points in regards to how deadly the virus actually was, they both were pro open the country back up. That's the only thing that matters. What matters is, what is your opinion when the truth comes out, right? When things finally come to light, just like when it came to the pandemic, January 6th, a lot of people saying, look, January 6th wasn't as bad as we thought it was, right? These people may have been incited by the police. They were let into the Capitol building by the police. A lot of the people that have been arrested and put in prison weren't actually violent. These are facts that have come out after the incident that were not known when the incident was happening. So I don't think anybody should be judged negatively for their opinions on January 6th when it initially happened. What you should judge people on is how do they respond to new information, okay? Are they changing their minds? Are they changing their opinions based off new information, okay? I think that's the main thing that people should be judged based off of, not necessarily how you initially reacted to a shocking event like the pandemic or January 6th. So I want to throw that out there because I think that's something that people do that I don't necessarily think is fair, okay? Especially when you have these shocking things that, happen, very quickly. Nobody knows what's going on. Again, how do you respond when the facts come out, okay? That's what I really judge people based off of. But yeah, let's carry on.
A lot to unpack there. Of course, the White House has said that Hunter Biden is acting unilaterally on the issue of election integrity, though. As you know, Trump took his case to court more than 60 times that there was fraud. He didn't win. But I want to get back to this key question. Do you still think it was a tragic day? Do you think that the people who stormed the Capitol should be held responsible to the full extent of the law?
I have concerns about the treatment of January 6 hostages. I have concerns. We have a role in Congress of oversight over our treatments of prisoners. And I believe that we're seeing the weaponization of the federal government against not just President Trump, but we're seeing it against conservatives. We're seeing it against Catholics. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to serve on the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Government, because the American people want answers. They want transparency, and they understand that as you look across this country, there seems to be two sets of rules. If your last name is Clinton or it's Biden, you get to live by a different set of rules than if you're an everyday patriotic American. I've been clear, Kristen, if you go back and play the full speech I gave on the House floor, I condemn the violence, just like I condemn the violence of the BLM riots, but I also importantly stood for election integrity and security of our elections, which if we don't have that, we do not have a democracy. So the real threat to our democracy is these baseless witch hunt investigations and lawsuits against President Trump, whether it's Tish James or whether we see in the D.C. Circuit Court. And that is undemocratic, and it's shredding our Constitution. And you know who agrees with me, Kristen? The American people. That's why President Trump is winning in poll after poll against Joe Biden.
Wow. Wow. Again, you can see why liberals are upset with Kristen Welker, okay, in regards to this interview as how it was handled, because Elise Stefanik is destroying the narrative, right? While at the same time, again, avoiding playing defense and always going on offense and hitting all of the key points that she needs to hit on. January 6th, prisoners, they're hostages, which, you know, hey, I agree with that characterization 100%. I condemn the violence, just like I condemn the violence on the BLM riots, right? Which she's basically equating the violence on January 6th to BLM, which, you know, the mainstream liberal media says is racist to do, right? You can't say they're the same thing, which I low-key agree with, because the BLM riots were much worse than anything we saw on January 6th, okay? So, again, you know, this was just amazing, right? This was an amazing interview. And now you can see why Democrats are so pissed, why they're so upset. And they're trying to literally punish her for this interview because she just absolutely destroyed, okay? And, yeah, I think Democrats consider what she's saying in this interview to be dangerous, right? Because they know that this breaks the narrative, and they don't want their narrative to be broken, right? They're going to protect their precious narrative at all costs. Her saying this on Meet the Press, okay, is this is a Democrat's worst nightmare right here. They don't like this.
The Justice Department has indicted a number of top-name Democrats as well, including the president's son, twice. So, I mean, a lot of critics would argue that undercuts your argument. There are two systems of justice.
If you want to try to, I want to answer that. If you want to make that case, the American people are very smart. They know that they tried to give Hunter Biden a sweetheart deal. We've heard from multiple IRS.
He's been indicted twice, Congresswoman.
But it was because of a judge that threw out a sweetheart deal that was negotiated on Joe Biden's behalf. Joe Biden and the Department of Justice have been withheld from going after the Biden crime family, which Joe Biden sits atop of.
Other top Democrats have been indicted as well, but we have a lot to get to, so I want to stay on track.
The Joe Biden crime family. Yeah, Biden crime family. Democrats are so pissed at that interview, they moved to censure her in Congress, right? They're literally trying to formally denounce her for that interview. Again, that's how triggered they are over Elise Stefanik speaking the truth about January 6th. Again, absolutely amazing stuff. That's how far they'll go to protect their precious narrative. So, hey, let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.